SEC is outputting our coverage. It's what we do.
That's all we do every Thursday
At 5:30, college football.
college football.
Mountain West Conference.
Doesn't matter.
SEC
Is all that matters.
Nick Saban
Is crazy.
Yeah.
And that's all. Let's start the show.
Welcome in to an early edition of the Outputting Our Coverage show. Apparently tomorrow is some sort of holiday where we celebrate Indians being murdered or eating turkey, or I'm not exactly sure what
I think it's a celebration of Native Americans coming to dinner without their pants on.
Yeah, that sounds great. That would make most Thanksgivings a lot more exciting, wouldn't it? If you had Native American friends that showed up without pants on.
I don't know. I've got a couple uncles who try that.
They're not Native American, are they?
Not that I know of.
But they don't have pants on.
I think we're Polish.
Yeah, that counts.
Is that the same?
Yeah, sort of the same thing.
All right, I can go with that.
I mean, just like Native Americans are called Indians, and that's not really correct. Because, I mean, the explorers thought that they were coming to India. They were not, in fact. Maybe the same kind of confusion could occur between Polish folks and Native.
No, I'm thinking that's probably not going to happen.
Probably not. Speaking of India, Native Americans, explorers, I was listening to the JOX radio on my way back up here today. I don't know if you ever listened to that, the Feinbaum show, all those types of things.
I've tried to listen to Feinbaum, and I can't help but turn it off after the callers start calling in.
It's very, very low on the quality level compared to this broadcast. I'll give you that.
Right.
It's absolutely.
Also our direct competition.
Sure. Well, yeah, direct competition. There's no competition, really.
That's true.
But anyway, they replayed the clip of Les Miles on a commercial break talking about Columbus Day. Did you ever get a chance to listen to that?
I did.
It was pretty legendary. Just,
tripping on acid.
Speaking of holidays, I just thought that I'd bring that back up. David, there is a game this weekend that is happening between two football teams in this state. It is
Alabama A&M and Alabama State.
Yes, that is exactly, being a local show to Huntsville here. We're trying to represent the A&M perspective.
The Bulldogs.
Who's your pick there in that game?
A&M.
Yeah, I'm going to go A&M too.
Don't know anything about either team.
Actually, ASU would probably be a smarter pick because they have Isaiah Crowell. You remember him?
Yeah, I do.
He's pretty good.
I'm definitely picking A&M now.
ASU, you mean?
Nope. A&M.
Really?
Picking away from Crowell.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. That's fine. There's also another game that's occurring this weekend between Alabama and Auburn.
Oh, okay.
It's colloquially known as the Iron Bowl.
Do they make iron?
There may be some iron produced from the smelting of excitement.
It might be. Jordan Hare is going to be rocking.
It's only Wednesday at this point right now, and I've got to say, level of concentration at work this week, the difficulty level was a 10. I mean, it was very tough to stay focused. I'm sure the state of Alabama was probably the least productive it's ever been this week.
I'm sure there are numbers for that. Can I go? I know we said we were going to wait on Alabama Auburn a little bit. Can I go ahead and get one thing out of the way, though?
Yeah, sure. Let's do this. I mean, we're going to be interspersing the broadcast here tonight.
You're going to get nuggets of Iron Ball all throughout this.
Absolutely.
I am so tired of Alabama fans talking about how they have played in hostile environments this year and comparing the atmosphere in Jordan Hare, what it's going to be this weekend, to Mississippi State and their stupid cowbells. Don't care. I don't care. It's not the same.
That's an interesting argument. I've heard this. Actually, A.J. McCarron even kind of made a quote to this effect. Not about games this year, but he said, we've been in big games before, and they have. They've been in BCS championship games.
They're still playing some freshmen.
Those are big games. However, I would almost argue that in terms of intimidation factor and things of that nature, a BCS championship game is not nearly as intimidating as going into your opponent's territory because it's neutral.
Well, I don't know, but
it's almost like a home crowd at a BCS game.
Yeah, I don't know, but the last game, the championship's on the line.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure, but in terms of noise and things of that nature, I think going into your opponent's territory, that's definitely going to be louder than the noise at a BCS championship game.
It is, and not only is it an Iron Bowl, which brings a whole new factor into it, but it's an Iron Bowl where both teams have something to lose, which
everything's on the line.
Nobody on either team has played in.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot at stake here. David, let me tell you what I'm tired of. I am tired of listening to caller after caller after caller on the Feinbaum show or whatever
picking Auburn. I completely agree.
Talking about A.J. McCarron and the Heisman.
That's stupid. I'm so ready for that to die.
I don't care about the Heisman really even anymore. I mean, it's kind of lost a lot of its value, seemingly. Do you feel that way too? I mean,
I could care less about the Heisman.
It's nothing like what it once was in terms of excitement, but it kind of brings us to our next story.
By the way, if y'all hear that in the background, Andy is emphasizing all of his points with his Auburn graduation ring.
Yeah,
I find it very fitting.
It's kind of symbolic.
It is. I love it.
Anyway, that kind of brings us to our next story here, talking about A.J. McCarron and the Heisman.
So stupid.
Jameis Winston, still no definition whatsoever relating to the alleged rape charges that he may be facing. And it doesn't sound like there's going to be any indication really one way or the other until after the ACC championship game.
Which I think is what I said when we first heard
You were right. I mean, and after the Heisman voting is complete.
Right.
So basically, voters are going to have to decide on the Heisman before they know anything. And they're also going to have to wait and see how everything plays out. Florida State can get itself into the national championship before we get any definition. By design.
No, I don't think so. I think these things just happen slowly. We talked about this when it first came out. It's just a slow process. Now, I'm going to have to preface this statement and get it out correctly because people are going to blow us up if I don't.
Okay, go ahead.
If he raped that girl, he needs to be punished.
Absolutely. Everybody can agree.
Everybody agrees with
yes.
that. That girl should get all the due process that she deserves.
Yeah.
There should not be any tampering or hiding or making this case any more special than any other. However, I will say, I wish they would hurry up and do this, and if they find that there's not enough evidence, go ahead and say it, because I think if he is eligible, he's clearly the Heisman winner.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's nobody else to compete with it.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
I
it's
wish
not
they
even
would
close.
just hurry up and do that so that we can stop talking about McCarron.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much at play here. On the one hand, just being realistic, there's a lot of money and a lot at stake here for Florida State and really the state of Florida as a whole. If you are to rule prematurely and it turns out that it's not true, you cost Florida State a championship, you cost the school a lot of money, a lot of exposure. You cost yourself your job if you're the Attorney General. That's an elected position. You're gone.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons to take your time here and get it right, but of course, on the other hand, just think about this scenario, David. What happens if we get past the championship game, we get to the Heisman ceremony, after all the voting and stuff has taken place, they come out, they filed the charges, Jameis can't play in the title game, you have one of the most awkward Heisman ceremonies of all time. I mean, that's a serious black eye for college football.
Yeah,
big time.
I mean, at that point, you still have to go through the trial, so he still could come up innocent.
Sure. I mean, he could still come up innocent, but even just the appearance of the charges there, I mean, from the title game perspective, without Jameis Winston, there's no way Florida State's going to win. So your title game just loses all of its interest.
Who's their backup? I know they had a heated rivalry in preseason.
Yeah,
their
backup, I forget what the guy's name is. I've actually heard a lot of talk that he may try to transfer to Alabama after the season to take over for McCarron. I think he could take advantage of that rule where if you've graduated already, you can transfer without sitting out. I've heard some discussion about that. He's hurt right now, though.
Okay.
I forget what the guy's name is, but he's hurt. So I don't know who their backup is. It would have been Clint Trickett,
right,
who's at West Virginia now.
Yeah.
He left. I'm not sure.
Not Jameis Winston.
Yeah, maybe Chris Winkie could come back. He would only be like 50 now, right?
That's right. I think they'd probably take him.
Yeah. He had a fun name, Winkie.
That is fun.
That's fun. Anyway, there's a couple other Heisman contenders. Let's just say, theoretically, that somehow the Chargers come out for Winston next week before the Heisman vote. Everybody decides, okay, we're not voting for that guy. One of the contenders kind of made a name for himself last night. Tuesday Night Maction. Jordan Lynch of Northern Illinois. He's been around a couple years. Kind of a name that if you're a real fan, you might have some familiarity with. But he
got shut down when he finally played a real defense last year. I think that's really going to hurt
That's true.
his chances.
I mean, he ran for like 300 yards in the first half last night or something ridiculous
against
like that.
Western Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, and again, is the Heisman a stats award? Or is it an on-the-field achievement award?
I think right now it's just a political popularity contest. If I think we had a perfect world, the person who I would give it to outright, no questions asked, is Andre Williams.
Absolutely. And the crazy thing is, I wasn't even really keeping up with Andre Williams. I hadn't even heard of him till this week. I mean, I'm just going to be completely honest. I didn't even know who he was.
And I'm kind of sad to admit this. The reason that I know him is because I play a version of fantasy football for college where you go pick players each week.
Yeah.
He's been on my roster since like week 3.
I mean,
he's
that's
tearing
nothing
it
to be
up.
embarrassed about. That's a smart play there.
He's tearing
That's
it
a smart
up.
play. He's got a lot of yards. He's only like the 16th player in college football history to run for over 2,000 yards in a season.
Yeah, and
that's hard to do.
It's crazy. And then Boston College has been terrible since Matt Ryan was there.
Right.
They have 8 wins. I mean, they might go to a bowl.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, it gets back
bowl.
to what is this award supposed to be? Is it supposed to be an award for the most well-known player on the best or one of the best teams, or is it supposed to be an award for the most outstanding player in college football?
I don't know if it's what it's supposed to be, but it's what it's become.
Right.
So
I agree. Absolutely. Let's take a quick break, David. I know we need like every 5 minutes or so. We're probably just going to have to pull back from our excitement about Iron Bowl week. Just take a reality check. Make sure our families are still okay.
Victoria will be fine.
Those sort of things. We're going to do that very, very quickly, and we're going to be back on the other side of outputting our coverage.
It's time for SEC preview. SEC, Big 10, Big 12, can't count. SEC, college football robber barons. SEC, yeah, they're big, they're fast, they're strong. And Missouri and Texas A&M as well. Yeah, SEC preview. Here we go.
All right, told you it'd be quick.
SEC
We're
preview.
back on outputting our coverage. Okay, David, we've talked Iron Bowl. We talked about it last week. Talked about some of the things that are going into this game. First of all, let's kind of recap what we talked about last week. I think we both agreed Auburn rushing attack either going to have a lot of success or no success.
Completely agree.
No middle ground there.
Yep.
I think we also agree that Auburn is going to have to pass to win.
Yes.
I
think we both agreed that coming into this game hasn't looked that great passing as of yet.
Yeah. I mean, we've agreed that on the field, the passing results that are going to have to be there to win this game have not shown up at this point.
With Nick Marshall.
With anybody, really. I mean, are you going to make an argument that Jeremy Johnson might be able to do that?
I think he's a better passer than Nick Marshall.
Probably. I mean, he probably is a better pure passer, but do you really want to throw a true freshman with
no. I'm not
experience
suggesting that he should start.
I don't think that's
I'm thinking
idea.
maybe some
situational
situation where he's a wide receiver and just gives you an extra element.
Absolutely. Yeah, you might see some of that. I don't think we've talked as much about the other side of things. Alabama's offense versus Auburn's defense. I'd like to explore that a little bit more today. The knock on Auburn for the past couple of years, from myself included, has really been issues with Auburn's defensive line. They were not able to stop the run, not able to get any pressure. I've heard some national people saying that's a strength for Auburn now. I'm not willing to go that far yet.
I think that's a lot of national people watching one game and taking a lot from it.
D Ford, he's a great player. One great player you can scheme around. I mean, look at Jadeveon Clowney. He's an awesome player. Nobody's going to disagree with you there.
What's he done this year?
He hadn't had a huge impact this year because people are scheming around it. To me, the key here is Auburn's depth, and can the guys like Carl Lawson and Montravius Adams step up and play the way they need to?
I kind of agree. At the same time, I completely disagree.
That's just what you do on Iron Bowl week, David.
I see where you're coming from. Here's my problem. When Alabama decided to, in the third quarter of the LSU game, they ran all over LSU, and there was nothing LSU could do to stop it. If I'm looking at two teams, LSU's defense, to me, is better than Auburn's defense, especially outside of the red zone. Now, I understand that there's a lot of debate about that, but even so, the scheme, the 4-2-5, I hate in this matchup. I don't think it's going to work. I think it's disaster. I think that Auburn will, on defense, will really key off of the emotion early and make some big stops. I actually think they're going to have a lead early in this game. I just think that eventually it gets worn down.
I can agree with that. There's a couple things I would say in addition to that. That's kind of what we saw in 2009. Auburn kind of jumped out to a lead that game, ran off some emotion, couldn't quite hold it at the end of the game. I wouldn't be surprised to see a similar type thing happen.
Something like that, yeah.
A couple other things to note, though. I've seen mention, and at this point, it's just message board rumors.
Just conjecture.
At this point, hey, who knows?
Right.
Alabama starting center Ryan Kelly may be injured as a result of practice this week. He's been injured already this season. They've had the backups had to play. That was against a weaker stretch of the schedule, so it's kind of hard to make any true comparisons. That could be a factor here in the running game.
It could be.
Alabama's offensive line, not as good as it was last year. Not saying they're bad, but they're
definitely not what they were last year.
So that's something to think about. The other critical factor here is, I agree with you. I think Auburn could probably get some stops early. They can't necessarily stop that running game or the passing game consistently. You got to get Alabama to give up some turnovers.
Yeah, turnovers are big, and then stops in the red zone, I think, are huge. If you can get Alabama to either settle for field goals or maybe get themselves into a penalty situation where they back up and they just turn the ball over, that's what you've got to have.
And Auburn's had decent red zone defense. They're kind of that bend but don't break thing.
They are incredibly different defense inside the red zone than they are outside.
Right, and when you look at running backs, T.J. Yeldon, Kenyon Drake, they've had some fumbles this year.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Some of them in seemingly critical situations. Alabama's been able to get themselves out of those situations. But again,
McCarron's thrown picks this year.
That's what's got to happen here. For Auburn to win, there's going to have to be some turnovers.
Alabama is definitely more turnover prone than they have been in years past.
Sure. So let's talk about that. A.J. McCarron passing the ball.
Okay.
I think you could make an argument that Auburn's weak spot with the pass is going to be over the middle. Linebackers for Auburn, definitely a weakness. I was listening to the radio again, and I think O.J. Howard is a real matchup problem for Auburn. He's bigger than Auburn's linebackers, and at the same time, he's faster
right,
than Auburn's linebackers.
It's going to be an issue, and what really works well for Alabama in this is, and I hate to keep coming back to it, but the 4-2-5, not only with the run defense, but when you start creeping up on the run and play action with a tight end over the middle,
I agree.
Will kill you.
Yeah, we saw that happen against Georgia with Auburn last week. Arthur Lynch, Georgia's tight end, was open time and time again.
Yeah.
I agree with you. The 4-2-5 is not the ideal defense you want to play against Alabama. Maybe Ellis Johnson comes out with some different looks.
I think so.
He tried that in the LSU game. Didn't work. At the beginning of the game, they tried coming out in some different looks. I think the players were confused. At that point, you get into, is it better to try a different look for the sake of using a different look, or is it better to stick with what you know, even though it's not a great matchup for you?
I will say, watch out for one of these. McCarron has thrown a pick or two in the last couple years that I've seen on this one specific play, and it's really kind of difficult to run, but it's neat when you see it run correctly. The inside linebacker fakes a blitz and comes up to the line and then backs off as a safety, runs a delayed blitz, which does get pressure because
it's kind of a switch out.
Right.
Yep.
The linebacker drops in the zone. McCarron has a tough time seeing that. So you could get maybe Frost with an interception at some point.
Yeah, and that's the other thing with this game here. With both teams, let's not kid ourselves. Last week was basically a bye week for Alabama. Both teams have really 2 weeks to prepare for this game. You get more time to study the film, more time to study your opponent's tendencies. Those types of things might become more apparent on both sides.
Definitely.
And I think, when you look at the other side of the ball, and I know we've probably beaten this to death, but this is the matchup everybody's interested in.
I really think this is the matchup that decides the game.
Which one?
Can Auburn run the football? That's the definition of the game.
And, when you watch what Auburn does, it's not complicated from a number of plays standpoint. They don't run a whole lot of plays. They just have a lot of options for each play.
Definitely.
And
formations, and they put you in difficult matchups.
So they're going to try to trick you before the play starts, and then once the play starts, they're going to see what you're doing and hopefully pick the right option.
Right, prairie dog offense.
I think theoretically, if you're always making the right choices, it's very difficult to stop an offense like that. However, that being said, I think Alabama is much more disciplined on defense than any of the other defenses that Auburn has faced, and that's what it takes to stop an offense like that.
I agree.
Making sure that everybody's sticking to their responsibilities, and covering each one of those options.
With that being said, Alabama has had a lot of mental lapses during games this year on the defensive side. It's cost them points, cost them a lot of points in the A&M game. It's cost them points at different parts of the season, but they've always been able to play through it. But yeah, you could see some mental mistakes happen.
At this point, David, I think we've kind of beaten to death the matchups on each side.
We're not going to talk about special teams.
Special teams. I don't see a lot of difference in the special teams.
I don't either. You've got good punters on each end.
Yeah, got good punters. You got decent returners on each end. Christian Jones, he's made some good plays back to the beginning of the season. Chris Davis for Auburn, he's run some back.
I just got to say, if you're a returner,
weapons.
Don't try to do too much because you could really get your team in a hole.
Absolutely.
Doing that.
Yeah. Kickers, Cody Parkey for Auburn is pretty solid. I don't think Alabama's had too many kicking issues this year.
Yeah. Except for the fact that they just don't trust him.
Has been a bit of an issue in the past.
Right.
Weather conditions are supposed to be good for this game. Cold, but not wet.
Right.
Which is good if you're Nick Marshall.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely don't want a wet ball for him trying to throw it. Any other intangibles that you would think factor into this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jordan-Hare Stadium, if you don't think that it factors in, you're kind of crazy. It's going to be loud. It's going to be packed. Auburn is extremely excited, been waiting for this type of game for a while. I think that's a big factor early in the game. I think crowd noise and crowd factors in less as the game goes on than a lot of people try to build it up to. But I think early in games it really has an impact.
And it depends on how the game goes. I mean, it's going to be loud at the beginning. If Alabama can get out a couple of scores early, you take the crowd out of it.
Definitely.
I mean, a lot of it, at least.
Yeah.
So there's certainly some things to look at. The line for this game right now, 10.5, 10, somewhere in that range. Started out as 24 at the beginning of the season. So
right. I think Auburn's done pretty good to get that number back.
So you got the number down quite a bit. It's that time, David. I think you have to give me a score prediction.
I will give you a score prediction. I am going to predict that Alabama wins 41-20.
41-20. So you're taking a pretty commanding victory there.
I am. And I think that Auburn scores twice early, and I think they find a way to score late.
Okay. So you're thinking kind of similar to 2009, except Alabama has a little bit more success.
And I really think that Alabama doesn't score that early. I mean, they'll keep it competitive, but I just, in the third and fourth quarter, I do not see how that Auburn defense is going to slow down Alabama's offense.
Even with 10 guys to rotate on the defensive line.
Even with 10 guys to rotate on the defensive line, I don't think it helps. I think if you can get past the first layer, just get a hat on a hat, then the running backs are going to have free reign in the second and third levels. I'm thinking 8 to 9 yards a carry, and it's just so annoying for a defense when you're picking up that kind of yardage because you can't stop. I mean, it's 8-9 yards every time. You'd much rather have a 60-yard touchdown run, come back and hold them to 1 yard every time.
Right.
But when somebody's just punishing you and putting it down 8-9 yards at a time,
it's
deflating.
It's mentally tough to deal with.
It keeps you on the field too.
Sure.
Wear down.
Sure. We got yours.
This is the moment I've been waiting for all week.
You're 41-20.
Yep.
You don't think that Auburn's defense can keep up in the third and fourth quarter. Here's the thing, David. At this point, I can't bet against this team. After what happened against Georgia, you call it luck, you call it whatever you want.
It was definitely luck.
This is a team of destiny, David. It's.
Are you going to be there?
I will be there.
Okay.
Yes, and that's why that's the only reason that Auburn's going to win if they do win is because I'm there. I mean, it's my voice.
What's their record with you there?
It's an overall winning record. Pretty good.
All
Pretty
right.
good record, I think.
Probably really good if you take the last year out of it.
If I took last year out of it, yeah, it's really a spectacular record. Like I said, it's tough to make a prediction on this kind of game.
It is.
Because with Auburn's rushing offense, like I said, they're either going to have a lot of success or no success. There's no middle ground here. I can't bet against this team. I think they're going to have success.
So it's a score.
The score, got to get to 30 if you're Auburn to win. 35-31. That's what we're looking at.
Okay. All right. So you think Alabama still scores some points?
I think Alabama's going to score points.
Where does Auburn get their stops?
Auburn gets some stops. I think they can get at least 1 or 2 stops, if nothing else, to a field goal.
Okay.
And I think they can get some turnovers.
Okay.
And that's where it's got to be. That's where your stops are.
Okay. And then you already were on record as saying that Auburn will have at least 2 rushing touchdowns.
I stand by that.
What about passing touchdowns? What do you if Auburn is to win this game by that score, what do they have to do passing?
I think you have to get at least 2 passing touchdowns, probably.
And Nick Marshall's the guy to do it. You think he can get 2 passing touchdowns?
I think he can get 2 passing touchdowns. I still think that Sammy Coates is a matchup problem for Alabama's defense.
Which is fine. You just got to get him the ball.
It's true. I mean, you got to get him the ball, but Nick Marshall has made some of those passes this year. You can look in multiple games, and he has made those long passes for touchdowns.
Yeah. I think you're going to have pretty good shell coverage over the top. I think your matchup problem probably comes on like a inside screen or a quick slant. But that's what Alabama's been hit on this year.
Think about this. If Auburn can have success in the running game
everybody sneaks up.
And force a safety to come up, that opens up that longer pass game for Auburn. And that's what's going to happen here.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that would almost have to factor into a mental error because a safety's first job is to stay back. And
that's great. That's great, but Sammy Coates, he's got more speed than the safeties.
But the safeties have a 12-yard jump. If they're doing the job right, he cannot outrun a safety because they have a 12-yard cushion. I mean, it is a matchup problem, but if they're playing proper assignment football, it's really not. But you could get a safety with his head in the backfield. All Sammy Coates needs is 1 or 2 steps.
Yeah, and Auburn's got that offense that can make you think twice about what's going on in the backfield.
And Alabama has Saban, who will murder you if you miss an assignment.
No, it's true. It's true. So
I mean, the threat of death is real in Alabama.
Hey, I'm just saying, with this game, I can't bet.
It's already. It's already right now. It's already on the table. It's official.
It's out there.
You can. There's a weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, look. Like I say, you never know what's going to happen in the Iron Bowl. Most of the time, the higher-ranked team wins. That's just how it is. This isn't a series where the underdog typically wins. Otherwise, you wouldn't be the underdog.
But this isn't. I wouldn't say that either team is an underdog right here. I mean,
I definitely would. Auburn's definitely an underdog here. You're playing the 2-time defending national champions.
There's who
haven't. I mean,
Auburn with your superiority complex or inferiority complex.
No, I'm just saying Auburn is. You can't argue that Auburn, coming off of a 3-9 season last year, is not an underdog in this game.
We're not talking about last year. We're talking about this year. Auburn only lost 1 game in a torrential monsoon.
I can't believe I'm arguing with you about whether Auburn's an underdog in this game. That's just crazy.
I think your perception is that everybody thinks Auburn's going to lose by 40, whereas I think most people think Auburn's going to make this a close game. Almost everybody I've talked to think this is going to be a 3-point game. Alabama or Auburn fan.
I agree with that.
I think Auburn
I don't necessarily think they're a big underdog. I still think if you polled 10 people on the street and said, who's the favorite in the Alabama-Auburn game, unless you just picked Auburn fans like me, just random folks would say Alabama. Definitely.
Where are we talking about? Are we talking about in-state or out-of-state?
I don't know. Let's go to like... Let's go to Arkansas.
See, I think that's an invalid statement, though, because if you go to Arkansas, Michigan, California, Texas, they've heard Alabama, Alabama, Alabama for the last 4 years. They've heard Auburn once, but they associate that with Cam Newton. I think if you poll people within the state, they're a little more knowledgeable of the programs.
Maybe, but that's not the... Okay.
I think you're going to have 6-4 to tell you that Alabama's going to win.
I'm going to tell you, I think my perceptions have been skewed by the amount of callers that I listen to on the radio on my way up.
This is what you get for listening to the Paul Feinbaum Show.
That's my problem. Lots of Alabama fans with lots of time to call into the Paul Feinbaum Show.
And so much hate.
It's just, it's pretty entertaining. Although I will say, I listened to another show on my way down last night, and somehow the calls actually morphed into impressions of people.
What?
Like, it was not even about football. They had the most terrible Ron Burgundy impression I've ever heard call in.
That's awesome.
It was pretty bad.
I would have heard that one.
A really, really solid Bill Clinton.
Ooh, that's a good one. They should have to represent teams that they think that they would root for.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
like Ron Burgundy representing USC.
Bill Clinton, of course, Arkansas.
Arkansas, yeah. How awesome would that be?
Fake Bill Clinton made some kind of joke about, that we all know that deep down Auburn sucks, and I know something about things that, whatever. It's awesome. Funny. Barack Obama called in.
Ooh, neat. He'd probably go for Illinois, the Fighting Illini.
He was offering hope and change in the Iron Bowl rivalry. Trying to think. W called in.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
And somehow ended up...
Don't mess with Texas.
somehow W ended up trying to compare his twin daughters to Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen as twins, and it was very bizarre. But these are the types of things that are happening on Birmingham Sports Radio, Dave.
These are the kind of things I hope happen to our show at some point.
These are the shows that are getting higher ratings than our show. How is that even possible?
Because we're on the internet.
Oh, yeah, we are, aren't we?
We should get higher ratings with that. The internet's everywhere.
Yeah, the internet, it is everywhere. Speaking of the internet, there's something I want to talk to you about at the end of the show with the internet, since you're a pretty internet-savvy guy.
A little tech-savvy.
Remind me about that when we get there. I think at this point, we're 30 minutes into the show. Once again, we need to check on our families, make sure they're still surviving until the game on Saturday. We do have other SEC games to talk about. Our Iron Bowl picks are in. We may have a couple final words on the Iron Bowl, so stick around for those. But right now, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back on the other side of outputting our coverage.
I hopped off the plane at LAX with a dream, my cardigan. Welcome to the land of fame excess. Am I gonna fit in? Jumped in the cab, here I am for the first time. Look to my right and I see the Hollywood sign. This is all so crazy. Everybody seems so famous. My tummy's turning and I'm feeling kinda homesick. Too much pressure and I'm nervous. That's when the taxi man turned on the radio and the Jay-Z song was on. And the Jay-Z song was on. And the Jay-Z song was on. So I put my hands up to play my song. The butterflies fly away.
All right, a little bit of good Miley Cyrus there before she turned all weird.
Did you see she did a duet with a fake cat at the AMAs?
It just doesn't even surprise me now.
Yeah.
I did see a video of, I forget who it was. I think North Carolina basketball was playing somebody. Belmont, I believe it was. And a Belmont fan up in the stands started singing. You could just hear it clear as day, singing that Wrecking Ball song.
And it worked.
It worked. The guy missed the free throw. It was really impressive.
The Minnesota Golden Gophers have had this queued up all year, and for the first time got to use it last week. I meant to bring it up, and I'm glad you reminded me. This past week was the first time an opponent has attempted a field goal while looking at their new Jumbotron in the end zone.
Really? First time?
The first time. And so what they had queued up is... But right before the snap of the ball, have you seen the YouTube or internet sensation of the really intense squirrel?
No, I haven't.
Or it might even be a gopher.
I have no knowledge of
it's
that.
this Japanese something, and it catches, it's zooming in on a squirrel who's got his back turned, and then he just turns to the camera with his eyes crazy big, and it's this big internet sensation. So Minnesota played that on their Jumbotron right before the guy goes to kick the ball, misses a 30-yard field goal.
It worked, huh?
Yeah.
People are going to look into that now. It's like, remember icing the kicker a few years ago?
Yeah.
Now you're going to Jumbotron the kicker.
That's right.
It's
you use whatever you have available.
It's a new hotness.
I love it.
Is what that is. It is rivalry week, not just in Alabama, but across the country, even though the rest of the rivalries
don't
just
really matter.
Pale in comparison to this one. Whatever people want to tell you about Ohio State and Michigan is total BS. There are still some other interesting rivalry games for us to talk about. Let's start in the SEC. Ole Miss and Mississippi State playing in the Egg Bowl on Thursday. You can eat some turkey. Then it's 6:30 Central Time. This one's going to kick off. Who you got here, David?
I've got Ole Miss, but everything inside of me is telling me to pick Mississippi State. I've ignored the inside of me.
That's your doo-doo River Craycraft coming out right
it's
there.
My doo-doo. Well, it's also the fact that for the last 5 years that I've been watching the Egg Bowl, the team that's not supposed to win coming in always wins.
That's kind of the opposite of the Iron Bowl.
It is.
So,
but I picked Ole Miss, even though I hate myself for doing it.
Yeah, I agree. I would go with Ole Miss there. I think Mississippi State is at a talent disadvantage to Ole Miss at this point. It's in Starkville, but yeah, I don't know. I would go Ole Miss there. Arkansas, LSU, any chance Bielema can get himself an SEC win here.
Yes, but only because
So you're just hanging on.
I said he's going to do it this
Hanging
year,
on.
and this is his last chance. He's got to do it now.
It's impossible. It's not
He
gonna
almost
happen.
did it last week. They went to
Yeah.
overtime, and
that
he
was
couldn't
Mississippi
finish
State.
it.
This is LSU. Not
Still.
gonna happen. Not gonna happen. I'll go.
LSU has nothing to play for right
I'll go
now.
ahead and collect my check for being correct on Bielema whenever you're ready.
Not until after this game, because LSU has nothing to play for. This smells like a letdown.
Okay, we'll see.
Also, what the Rock's
Speaking
cooking.
of potential letdowns, not even close. Florida State, Florida.
They're going to beat the brakes
This could
off
be
of
the
Florida.
ugliest game in that rivalry, maybe ever.
Did you hear Muschamp sign for, or is going to
He's
be
back.
He's back
That's
for the
crazy.
2014 season.
Here's the problem with that situation. Just a quick side note here. How on earth are they going to find any decent offensive coordinator who wants to go into that crap storm?
I don't know.
You know, if the worst, maybe at best you're getting 1 year. That's it,
Right.
and then you're getting fired.
Yeah.
There's no way. That's a terrible decision.
Although, you know what Florida probably did? They probably took a second, looked up, and said, who else could we get?
And then they tried to block themselves.
That's right. That was awesome.
If you haven't seen that video, do yourself a favor. Just look that one up. Vandy, last second taking down Tennessee last week. I was so mad I had Tennessee picked to win, and
It was
then
awesome.
the refs gave them that spot, which I think was actually correct. Vandy came back to win. They got Wake Forest this week. I don't see any issues there. Vandy, another 8-4 season. There is no way James Franklin is still at Vandy after this year.
Which we have said
No
every year James
possible
Franklin's been at
way.
Vandy.
James Franklin, please, for the love of everything, leave Vandy while you can.
That's
it's
right.
It's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
We promise.
Go somewhere else.
Georgia Tech, Aaron Murray out with an ACL. His college career is over. It sucks to see that. Aaron
does.
Murray's a great competitor. I have
Yeah,
a lot of
I like
respect
him.
for him. I don't know. I think Georgia Tech could win this game now.
I think with Aaron Murray out, they could, and because Georgia is playing with a team of third stringers, but at the same time, no, they can't.
Yeah, I agree.
Georgia's going to beat Georgia.
I pick Georgia there. Tennessee and Kentucky in a pillow fight. I'll take Tennessee there. Kentucky,
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, guys.
I don't think it really matters one way or the other.
Clemson, South Carolina, top 10 matchup there. South Carolina, this game, of course, has no bearing on them getting into the SEC championship. All they need is for Mizzou to lose to Texas A&M. We'll talk about that in a minute. I actually got Clemson in this one, David.
I do too. I don't think I think South Carolina is kind of a mirage at this point.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, look back at what South Carolina's done recently. They lost to Tennessee, of course. They only beat Florida 19-14. That is concerning.
That's a bad Florida
That is
team.
concerning.
They got lucky beating Missouri, by the way.
Yeah, so I think Clemson is the right pick there. And then, of course, the final game in the SEC, Texas A&M and Missouri.
Big game.
Big matchup here. Texas A&M surprisingly getting shut down on offense last week by LSU. Can Missouri do the same?
No, I don't think so. I think you're going to run into a really angry Manziel. I think his luck follows him all the way to Missouri. Missouri's going to score a ton of points. A&M's defense could give up 24 points to you and I by ourselves, but I think A&M does enough to pull it out.
I don't know. I think Missouri's defense is better than you give them credit for.
I agree.
And I think people are keep just doubting Missouri as a legitimate team.
I do.
They're a really good team.
Yes.
I think they're a really good team, but I also think they're going to lose this game.
Yes.
I agree with you. I think Texas A&M wins there. That's just the way things go. It works out well for either Auburn or Alabama because South Carolina a much easier matchup in that title game.
And just coming off getting pounded from Clemson.
Yes, absolutely. Let's look at some other pansy rivalries from across the country. Arizona and Arizona State. Arizona, that big takedown of Oregon last week.
Which means they have nothing left in the tank.
This
I'm
is
taking
a
Arizona
classic
State.
letdown here for Arizona. Absolutely take Arizona State there. The rivalry that everybody always tries to pretend is better than Auburn, Alabama, Ohio State, and Michigan.
I'm actually just going to take the loss on this one. I've refused to pick the game because I don't recognize it as a big game.
You'd like to think that maybe Michigan has a shot, but you're crazy if you think that.
Yeah, they
It's
don't.
impossible.
Ohio State's going to win this game
Ohio
by
State wins here. However,
2,000 points.
Ohio State will have to play Michigan State. That one's much more interesting.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah. Well, actually, I want to talk about Ohio State here in a minute. Just bear with me there. UCLA and USC. Pretty intriguing game here. Number 22, number 23. USC, what a renaissance for them this year. Now they've got the problem of should they hire Orgeron or not. That being said, I think Orgeron takes this game.
I do too. I think UCLA's really deflated. They were kind of riding that high of their win streak. I think USC's got
You don't
this
bet
one.
against Coach O right now.
That's right.
That's a big mistake.
Betting against Coach O is a big no. How about that?
And we roll on with Notre Dame and Stanford. Pretty classic rivalry. I don't anticipate this to be a classic game. I would take Stanford here.
I hope Stanford wins by 8,000 points.
Yeah, I don't think there would be too much of a contest. And then Texas, Mac Brown potentially coaching for his job here in this one, playing Texas Tech. It's at Texas. The two teams pretty even record-wise.
Who you going with?
I'm going Texas Tech here, man.
I'm gonna read you something, and I'm gonna tell you where I'm going with.
Okay, I know what you're about to say. Go ahead.
Loss at Oklahoma. Yep. Loss Oklahoma State. Loss Kansas State. Loss Baylor by 30.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Texas.
Hey, you may be right. I just got a feeling on this one.
Okay.
I got a feeling.
When the gas passes, you'll just talk to me next week.
I got a feeling that people at Texas really want Mac Brown out. I'm not saying that there's any sabotage or anything going on.
We're going to on the field sabotage.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying when you got a situation like that, everybody's thinking about it. It's a distraction. Texas Tech pulls out a big win here at the end of the season.
All right. Now, you've got about 4 minutes to tell me about Ohio State and something about the internet.
Okay. Let's start with Ohio State. This is in Stuart Mandel's mailbag this week. I heard it talked about on the radio. I'm sure people are going to discuss it. It's probably stupid for me to bring this up because it's almost like bad karma. But let's just say, for instance, Auburn does beat Alabama. I'm certainly not trying to jump ahead and say it's going to happen. Just if it does happen, Auburn beats Missouri. I think you have to beat Missouri in the SEC championship. Do you jump Ohio State?
Yes,
undefeated?
100%.
Okay.
Even without a thought.
What if Missouri loses and you play South Carolina in the championship? Do you still have enough to beat or to jump Ohio State?
100% without a thought. Yep.
I agree with you. I don't think it's going to happen though.
It might not.
I don't think it would. I think
there's a lot of people who do not like the SEC and doesn't want to see a representative this year.
But just think about this, David. Think if Auburn beats Alabama, wins the SEC championship, gets shut out of the national championship game, Jameis Winston ends up being accused, doesn't play in the national championship game.
Then Auburn officially is the university who gets to gripe about the most national championships.
You have Ohio State beating Florida State. Nobody wants to see that.
Nope.
Nobody wants to see that.
And for the rest of eternity, nobody still takes Ohio State seriously.
At that point, if you're an Auburn fan, you better just hope that nobody ever brings up the BCS to you again.
Right.
What a disaster.
It's an unspeakable.
What a disaster that would be. All right, anyway.
That'd be awesome.
I wanted to bring this up to you, David. I read an article about this last night. Are you familiar with cryptology?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's encrypting all your data.
It's crazy stuff.
Yep.
Apparently there's some secret organization called Cicada 3301.
Okay.
Do you know about this?
Nope.
Okay, they have posted online these challenges, basically, like code and things hidden in images that people are trying to find.
Oh, I want to go do that.
It's pretty interesting stuff. The article I read mentioned a thing called the Darknet. Do you know anything about this Darknet?
Yes.
It's like where apparently really seedy stuff lies. It's basically like crossing the railroad tracks of the internet.
Not good, yeah.
It's bad stuff over there. My question is, do you think it is at all possible that ESPN, in a quest for global dominance, is orchestrating this scheme in some form or fashion?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
I
really didn't know where I was going with the story. I was trying to relate it back to sports. It's
right.
really just intriguing to me.
Yeah,
when I saw that.
Hackers are just kind of, or any kind of coder, they just want to show you how smart they are.
Yeah.
And that's what all of these things come down to. It's typically one or two people who start it. It becomes a big deal. No, I don't think you have any organization behind that.
Probably not.
Probably defeat the whole purpose.
Probably not.
About the pick 10, if you want to see the standings and where you stand, go to the website.
Yeah, you've basically got, I think, like 2 more weeks. You've got this week and then like
championship week,
Army, Navy, all that kind of stuff.
And then we'll go to bowl pick'ems where I will once again reign victorious.
You kind of restart there on bowl pick'ems. You got a chance to revitalize yourself.
But do so good.
Getting down to the wire, bowl pick'em. Getting down to the wire, Iron Bowl week. Next week we will know.
It's such a good time to be
know.
alive.
We'll know everything next week.
One of us will be right.
One of us will be right.
Or neither of us will be right.
It could end in a tie?
No, I mean,
Potentially?
not just the win, but how we see the game
Oh,
going,
sure,
what the score might be.
I agree.
So it'll either be one of us or none of us.
I think at this point we have literally said all we can say about that game, David. It's time to just drink it in, eat some turkey, go into some sort of coma.
I don't know. Which mascot do you think would win in the wild? And you can't take both mascots. Because you can't have like a tag team Tiger-Eagle combo.
Well, yeah, which one do I pick?
The Tiger.
Like
You're the Auburn Tigers. You pick the Tiger.
Oh,
in
like,
the wild.
we're not talking about like all being big out.
No, we're talking about in the wild, elephant
Ooh.
versus tiger.
I don't know. There's a lot to that. I
There
think
is.
we'll have to talk about that next week.
All right.
I got to think about it.
Hit us up on Twitter and Facebook. Tell us who you think would win.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
We'll
you've
do
run
a
out of
poll.
stuff to talk about with the actual football game. This is the best you can do at this point, fans.
Yeah,
so,
that's
come
it.
on. Just let us know.
You know you were thinking it.
We'll be back next week, breaking it all down. I may be crying or jubilant. Who knows what will happen.
I will be the same.
That's just the way the Outputting Our Coverage show goes. We'll see you next week.